The mansion stood like a palace on the edge of the city, its marble walls glowing under the morning sun. Inside, however, silence reigned. Richard Bennett, a man known in business circles as a ruthless and brilliant millionaire, moved slowly through the grand hall with a heaviness that wealth could never lighten. To the outside world, he was powerful, respected, even envied. But behind the golden gates of his estate, he lived with a wound no amount of money could heal. His only daughter, Emily, had been blind since birth. Richard had tried everything. He had flown in the best doctors from across the world, spared no expense on treatments, and built a home filled with tools to make her life easier. Yet nothing changed the painful truth. He watched as she stumbled through the halls, her small hands searching for walls, her innocent voice asking questions he couldn't answer. Every laugh she gave was tinged with sorrow for him, because he felt it was laughter at a world she could never see. At night, Richard would stand by her bedside and whisper promises to the sleeping child, that he would find a cure, that he would give her the sight she deserved. But with each passing year, his hope dimmed. His fortune grew larger, his businesses expanded, but his heart felt poorer than ever. To many, Richard seemed untouchable. Yet inside, he was simply a father broken by helplessness. The grand mansion echoed with silence not because it lacked life, but because its master carried grief too heavy to share. And as the world praised his success, Richard secretly carried the unbearable belief that his daughter would live her life in permanent darkness, and that no miracle would ever come. The day Maria arrived at the mansion, the air shifted in a way no one expected. She was young, gentle, and soft-spoken, but what stood out most was not her polished manners, it was the kindness that seemed to flow naturally from her. Unlike the other staff, who treated Emily like a fragile doll, Maria treated her like any ordinary child. From the first morning, Maria chose to sit beside Emily during breakfast instead of standing at a distance. She described the smell of freshly baked bread, the warmth of the sun streaming through the window, and the way the garden flowers swayed outside. Emily listened wide-eyed, smiling as if she could picture it all. That surprised Maria, because her descriptions felt too real for Emily to only imagine. Day after day, Maria spent time with the little girl in ways no one else did. She guided her tiny hands over the petals of roses, saying softly, "This is what red feels like, warm, bold, alive." Emily giggled and whispered back, "Red is like Daddy's tie, right?" The answer startled Maria. How could Emily know the color of something she had supposedly never seen? Maria began noticing more. When sunlight streamed through the curtains, Emily would tilt her head toward the light, her face glowing as if she sensed more than warmth. When a bird flew past, her eyes seemed to follow the flutter, even if only for a moment. And when Maria poured water into a glass, Emily's gaze flickered to the shimmer before it settled. To most, these details were nothing. But to Maria, they were whispers of a secret too big to ignore. Deep in her heart, a quiet suspicion grew: Emily's world might not be as dark as everyone believed. Maria couldn't shake the feeling that something about Emily's blindness wasn't as final as everyone believed. The more time she spent with the little girl, the more signs she noticed, too many to dismiss as coincidence. One afternoon, while Richard was away at a business meeting, Maria decided to test her suspicion. She brought Emily into the playroom, where the floor was scattered with toys. Casually, she rolled a bright red ball across the carpet, letting it stop just a few feet away. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she called, "Emily?" To her shock, Emily's head turned instantly. Her eyes, though clouded, followed the ball's movement. Slowly, she stretched out her hand in its direction. Maria's heart pounded. Could it be true? Was the child not blind after all? Her hands trembling, Maria lit a small candle on the table and pretended to busy herself. As the flame flickered, she watched Emily's pupils shrink and widen with the light. The reaction was subtle but undeniable. Maria covered her mouth to keep from gasping. Emily could see, at least partially. But the discovery filled Maria with as much fear as hope. What if she was wrong? What if her belief only gave Richard false dreams? He had suffered so long, built his life around accepting his daughter's condition. To raise hope in him and then see it crushed could destroy him completely. Still, Maria couldn't ignore what she had witnessed. She knelt beside Emily, brushing a curl from her forehead. "Sweetheart," she whispered gently, "do you sometimes see things, just a little?" Emily hesitated, then whispered back, "Yes, but Daddy doesn't believe me. He says it's just my imagination." Maria's chest tightened. The truth was there all along. Emily wasn't living in complete darkness. She was just waiting for someone to believe her. That evening, Maria could barely concentrate on her work. The discovery weighed heavily on her heart. She knew she had to tell Richard, but fear gnawed at her. He was a man who had built walls of pride and pain around himself, and to suggest that his daughter might see, after years of doctors confirming blindness, felt almost cruel. Still, she couldn't keep silent. When Richard returned home, exhausted from a day of meetings, Maria approached him carefully. "Sir," she began softly, "I believe Emily may not be completely blind." The word struck him like thunder. His face hardened. "How dare you," he snapped, his voice trembling with both anger and grief. "Do you think I haven't spent millions on specialists? Don't play games with my child's suffering." But Maria didn't back down. She gently took Emily's hand and placed a yellow flower in it. "Emily," she said, "what color is this?" Emily smiled shyly. "It's yellow, like the sun, Daddy." The room froze. Richard's hands shook as he stared at his daughter. "What did you say?" he whispered, his voice breaking. Emily's little fingers tightened around the flower. "I can see some things, Daddy. But, you never believed me." Tears filled Richard's eyes. The walls around his heart crumbled in an instant. For years, he had accepted despair, convinced that hope was too dangerous. And yet, here it was, spoken by the daughter he loved more than life itself. Doctors were called again, and this time, tests confirmed Maria's discovery. Emily's vision was impaired, but not lost. With therapy and treatment, it could improve. Richard fell into a chair, his face buried in his hands. For the first time in years, his tears were not of grief, but of hope returning. The mansion, once heavy with silence, now echoed with something it hadn't heard in years, laughter. Emily's giggles filled the halls as she chased butterflies in the garden, her steps wobbly but full of joy. Richard walked behind her, not with the fear of a father protecting a fragile child, but with the pride of a man watching his daughter embrace life with new hope. Maria stood nearby, her heart swelling as she watched the transformation unfold. She had only wanted to care for Emily, but her courage had changed everything. She had given Richard back something money could never buy, the belief that miracles were possible. One afternoon, Richard approached Maria as Emily played among the roses. His eyes, still red from nights of weeping gratitude, softened as he said, "Maria, you didn't just discover the truth, you gave me back my little girl." Maria lowered her gaze humbly, but Richard gently lifted her chin. "All my wealth, all my power, none of it mattered. It took your kindness to see what I was too blind to notice." His voice cracked. "You've done more for me than any doctor or fortune ever could." In that moment, Richard realized something profound. Blindness wasn't only about the eyes, it was also about the heart. For years, he had lived blind to hope, blind to the possibility of small miracles, blind to the simple truth that love sees more clearly than fear. As the golden sun dipped into the horizon, Emily ran to her father, her eyes sparkling. "Daddy, I can see you smiling." Richard fell to his knees, embracing her tightly. The mansion no longer felt like a place of sorrow. It had become a home of hope, where love had opened not just a child's vision, but a father's heart.